Welcome, Benjamin Barnes, to Talking Back to Suicide. I am honestly, sincerely, so eager for our conversation today because from what I've been reading about you, you have an extraordinary story to share regarding your own mental health, your musical abilities, your resilience, and inspiration. I'd like you to begin anywhere in your story, your real life story that you'd like to begin.
Well, thanks for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm really happy to be here. Um, where to start? I guess everybody wants to know why. That seems to be something that a lot of people tend to question: is why does somebody do something to harm themselves? The My situation was pretty unique, and I have schizoaffective disorder, uh, which is like bipolar disorder, except instead of uh, not having well, you have hallucinations when you have schizoaffective disorder, and disorder is just delusions. Um, I was in a state where I had been had a kind of a stressful, traumatic experience that morning, and I'd been hypomanic for a couple weeks before then, and in my mind, I believed that uh, if a certain thing happened, then all my friends would get hurt or murdered. So, and it was because of something that I had done, and so I felt the guilt, and that's why I got in front of the train. I was hit by a train uh, in a suicide attempt back in 2007, and I was delusional. I was having an episode, uh, and so. Uh, I I had had some suicidal ideations uh, throughout my life. I've struggled with depression. Uh, I come from a family that my mother has schizophrenia and my father has bipolar disorder, and they were both drug addicts as we were growing up. So my brother and I had a really traumatic childhood. Um, the what happened what I experienced with depression is I tend to have this catastrophize. In my experience, when negative things happen in my life, usually the the worst case scenario is what comes out. Whether it's as a young kid, uh, uh, having to leave my home, with the family, having to be homeless and living in a bus or things like that. It was always the most worst case scenario would happen when there was a negative thing that would happen in our lives, and uh, so this created catastrophication. Catastrophize. So for any situation that's going on, I will think all the way to what the end result is going to be, and whether that's uh, 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 my friends all getting killed, or me being homeless, or uh, uh, having I had many surgeries to recover from, to have my skull rebuilt after the suicide attempt. Um, there were a lot of failed surgeries. So whenever I was told that I was going to have another surgery to re, rebuild my skull, something would happen, and the surgery would fail, and I'd have to have another surgery. Uh, so uh, that was my experience. Is uh, uh, I get I got delusional and I jumped in front of a train. So it's a long
Benjamin,
story.
and should I call you Benjamin or Ben?
Yeah, Ben is fine.
Ben. So Ben, how old were you when you had that suicide attempt, jumping into a moving train?
37.
And were you in mental health treatment at that time?
Yes, in 1996, when I was 26, I had my first episode. I had just finished getting my master's degree and was in some musical projects that were uh, that I was involved in, and I managed. So I had a lot of stressful stuff going on, and I ended up going into my first episode, which uh, uh, got me into the mental health system in San Francisco, and so I've been in treatment since 1996. Uh,
Yeah, I'm a retired child psychiatrist.
yeah,
Uh,
well,
yeah, and of course, it also treated, adults. I'm remembering years ago, and this might have been, I was in training at NYU Bellevue.
uh,
I was there for, this was post medical school. I was there for, I think it was like 6.5 years because I first did pediatrics and then I became board certified in peds, but then I turned around immediately and I did psychiatry and then I did child
wow,
psychiatry. Um, and I'm remembering a man who I think he ended up pushing somebody into a train, and it had
wow,
to do with uh, it had to do, I think, with his seeing. What's the cigarette company that has like a camel?
oh,
Maybe I guess
Camel
it's
cigarette,
Camel
yeah,
cigarette, right?
Camel,
Camel
yeah,
cigarette, and the image is of a camel, and in his delusional state, there was like a hump on the camel, and he associated the word hump in a sexual way,
yeah,
in a homosexual way. And in his deluded mind, that meant that he was being, I don't know, found out or attacked, or he was paranoid, and
yeah,
he ended up in that state of mind, pushing somebody in front of a train, right?
wow,
So, and I would say, hopefully, clearly, in his right state of mind, that never ever would have happened. But he
yeah,
believed his mind, right?
wow,
And
yeah,
in putting it in the direction of suicidal thoughts, that suicide is a liar. The thoughts, right, or
yeah.
that those deluded thoughts that one can have. I want to ask you, Ben, going back into your childhood, with what 2020 hindsight, as it
Yeah.
were there elements of moodiness or thinking that was a little off, that wasn't understood as such until your later years?
Not that I remember. I did go into kind of a fantasy world when when I would become uh, when I get kind of stressed out. I'd think things through and think of what the best scenario could be and the worst scenario could be. Of any situation, and that kind of clouded my judgment. I couldn't stay focused on things as I was growing up, and a lot of the strange behavior that my parents had really affected my behavior growing up. Uh, that's why music has been so important in my development and my life. It gives me something to focus on and in a positive way. I don't I don't think of the worst case scenarios for everything that happens, uh, and, and to me, I tend to focus more on the moment, and that has to do with a lot of learning how to play an instrument and listening to music, staying in the moment, and getting in touch with my emotions uh, and just my having a logical, uh, positive uh, sense of being in mind that allows me to function in normal society uh, without weirding people out. So,
Yeah. When you were a boy, did you did you realize that there was something not okay going on with your parents?
uh, yeah, I did, and um, I would talk to my teachers about it, and we'd have my mother would be in an episode and we would have a conference with the teacher, and the teacher would uh, would would kind of uh, pay a little more attention to me and help me. There was one teacher I write about this in my autobiography. Is uh, there were teachers that took a special interest in me because they knew that I had some serious issues going on in my life as a child and as a young adult, with my parents and other members of my family uh, that were uh, alternative. I should call it. Um, so I knew that there was something wrong. Because, there would be kids that I'd make friends with in school, and then the parents would find out who our mother was, and tell the kids that they couldn't play with me anymore. So they would tell me that they couldn't play with anymore because their parents told them they that you shouldn't be hanging out with me, uh, that sort of thing. Because they my mother had a reputation for like strange behavior, a lot of emotional outbursts, and she would, uh, she would take my brother and I to somebody's house and just sort of leave us there and then disappear for a couple of days, that sort of thing. Uh, so a lot of people didn't want to have any kind of interaction with her because she was so unstable. Um, and That did affect me as a young kid. I I always felt I was different, and I always thought that there was something wrong with me, and that's why people didn't want to be my friends. And uh,
So sorry that you went through that and also that your parents were not well.
you
Um,
know,
Sometimes, I shouldn't just say sometimes, very often as children, we blame ourselves, right?
yeah,
Or we take over that sense of, well, it must be me,
yeah,
right? When in actuality, in most cases, that's not the case, right? There was neglect going on related to
yeah,
your mom's mental health problems?
yeah. She would do things like we'd we'd the three of us were living in a small trailer. When my dad and she had separated, and she had custody of us. And when she would go out and she would leave us for like 2 or 3 days, and lock us into the trailer and leave a sledgehammer and say, if there's a fire, break the window and climb out. And we're like, 4 and 5 years old, 5 and 6 years old, uh, and developing some serious uh, cases of abandonment issues that have followed me and my
Which,
brother.
which makes sense based on the experiences that you had.
Yeah, yeah,
Was Child Protective Services ever
yes.
involved?
There, there's a story my dad told me. The principal of our school gave him a call. Uh, this was when I was in second grade, and he said that if he didn't come and take care of us, then he was going to call CPS and have us put in foster care. And so he came and uh, there was a, a time there was an experience where my mother, my dad came to take us, and my mother had a, a violent outburst. She grabbed a guitar and tried to knock his head off with it, and broke his arm. And so he got us into the bus that he was living in, and she'd come out and she was cursing and stuff, and there were neighbors like coming out to see what was going on, and my dad was driving off with us in the bus with a broken arm, and so there were a lot of experiences like that. There was one experience where my mother attacked a woman that uh, my dad was uh, he had his bus parked at her place, this woman's place, and uh, one day my mother had a visitation, and she uh, told us that we were never going to see our father again, and so my brother and I ran off, and I ran to the police station, and they ended up taking me back to where my father's bus was parked. And a couple hours later, my mother was dragging my brother down this dirt road towards the place we're at, and she had a belt wrapped around his arms, and he was crying, and she came up into the house. She was going to take me, and the woman that was that owned the house that my dad's bus was parked in came to the door and started to try and convince that take my to have my mother let go of my brother, but uh, she ended up attacking the woman and had a grabbed his kitchen knife and was about to stab her, and the woman's husband came into the room and stopped my mom uh, from that scene, and it was uh, there was stuff like that that was going on, a lot of, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who grow up with parents that have these kind of episodes. Uh, so
Was she ever hospitalized or ever
yeah,
incarcerated?
the first time she was hospitalized, I was 3 years old, uh, and she was gone for I think about 2 months uh, for her first episode, and then from there, uh, well, I I I wrote about it in the book. Uh, there's I didn't get a chance to do any real research and find out where she was hospitalized at and what dates and times. That that kind of stuff is uh, it's a little hard to do that sort of research, especially when you don't have any kind of a authority or government uh,
Was
permissions.
there ever a time that she was stable?
Uh,
And I'm thinking stable perhaps in the sense that she was taking prescribed medication for her
uh,
schizophrenia or
she
in treatment.
she never took her meds until there was a judge that gave her a stay away order. From the time we were uh, 10 and 11 until we were 18, she wasn't allowed to come in contact with us. Uh, but she eventually started to uh, met, get into the mental health system and got help. And uh, she was on and off homeless, and then would take her meds and be in a halfway house, and this throughout her life. Um, so there are times that she took her meds and times she didn't, and I learned a lesson from that. It's better to not really take any chances with whether you should follow your medication schedule or not.
And then, was your mom substance abuse involved too?
Yeah, yeah, she did a
What
lot of LSD
what are
and
your thoughts about how that contributed or may not have contributed to how she was doing?
uh well, they grew up in we grew up in she was a hippie. It was the hippie era, and she had experimented a lot with LSD and marijuana, and uh that definitely it she when she was like when she'd leave us in the trailer, she'd disappear for 2 or 3 days, and she'd go. I believe should be tripping with some guy that she met on. Uh, had a lot of experiences like that, um, where she was just in, not in not in reality. She was in an altered reality, altered universe,
Think
alternate.
that she had ever attempted suicide or threatened suicide?
Uh, Yeah, there was one time when she came out of a room she was uh, she had been in this room yelling and uh, crying and making a lot of noise, breaking stuff, and then she came out and uh, uh, she didn't have a she didn't have a knife in her hands, but she was pretending that she was stabbing herself, uh, and uh, I think I was about 5 years old, and she I don't think she ever actually tried to commit suicide, but she would talk about it sometimes.
And you mentioned, Ben, that I think you said your father had bipolar disorder.
Yeah, yeah, he's
Could you
only
say something about that and how it played out from your
yeah.
perspective as a child and adolescent?
My dad, the symptoms he had was more he would get really inspired and he'd create a bunch of stuff, and then other times he would get depressed and wouldn't be able to get out of bed. That was the extent of it. He wasn't he wouldn't go into a delusional state. He wasn't bipolar one. He was bipolar two, and he also used a lot of like cocaine and meth. Uh, so I I think that was he was a lot more normal than my mom was, and uh, he has a pretty stable life. He ended up meeting a woman who took care of my brother and I, uh, and and he's had a good life with her for the last, I don't know, 50 years. Um, so he was um, he wasn't as eccentric as my mom.
What was he aware in part that there was some kind of a psychiatric illness that he had, or did he think, well, this is just me?
uh, well, as with in regards to my mother and uh, taking care of my brother and me, my dad thought that he was the problem, why she was uh, so unstable. So he left us with her and uh, tried to see if that worked, if that made her more stable. But as for himself, he got diagnosed later. And he was in his 40s when he got diagnosed as bipolar. Um, so in relation to my mom, he didn't have a whole lot of strange behavior and
Sometimes people take receiving a diagnosis different ways. You know, some people might feel relieved that there's an explanation of what's going on.
right.
Other people may disagree or feel angry, right, about it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, for yourself, I think you mentioned, was it you were in your late 20s with the first psychiatric admission?
Yeah, I was 26, and after about 3 or 4 months of being on the streets, I eventually got 5150, and that sort of got into treatment. And
Could you explain what that means, Ben? 5150?
yeah, that's when the authorities take you into custody because you are either a danger to yourself or other people.
And it was the background that you had been hypomanic or you became homeless or what happened
Um,
leading up to the admission?
I was living with a woman, and we were going to get married. Uh, my at the time, I had a lot of projects going on. Uh, I got pretty stressed out, and ended up going into a mania. Uh, and so my girlfriend at the time talked to my stepmom, and my stepmom told her to take my keys and kick me out of the house. And so that's what happened, and I ended up on the streets for several months until I got 5150. And uh, when I came out of the hospital, I all my stuff had been uh, taken, and my cat was gone. It was a really traumatic experience, and it took me a couple of years to recover from the material losses. I lost my
Yes, yeah.
violin, my viola, my guitars, my computer, things like that.
Looking back on that admission, um, was there, I don't know, what kind of treatment did you receive? Or did they
Uh,
say that there's a mental health illness going on?
yeah,
Or
yeah, that
what did
that
they
was
tell
pretty.
you?
It was pretty devastating because all my life I didn't want to end up like my mother. That was I and it was one of my big fears that I would uh, be uh, be mentally challenged, mental health challenged, uh,
And sounds like
like my mother.
severely incapacitated.
Yeah. So uh, I was I was diagnosed as having grave disability, and was given a social worker to put me on SSI. And uh, the doctors prescribed. They put me on Depakote and a few other olanzapine. Let's see. They gave me uh, a couple other meds. I don't
And the
remember. It was
Depakote
years ago.
was as a mood stabilizer?
Yeah, it was as a mood stabilizer. The first diagnosis I got was schizoaffective disorder, and then that was downgraded to bipolar one when I got into the mental health session and started seeing a, a psychiatrist, Dr. Schoenbrunn, who uh, said I had bipolar disorder. And then uh, just my my latest diagnosis has been schizoaffective disorder, uh, because uh, I guess what I've been experienced is categorized as hallucinations and not just delusions. Uh, but I really don't think that I have hallucinations. I um I just become delusional. uh, I'm not seeing things that aren't happening.
And are you currently continued in mental health treatment and are you taking
Yes,
medication?
yes, and it's being my whole life since the diagnosis. I've been really diligent about taking my meds and kept stable because most people don't know uh, this this aspect of my personality that uh, I'm a real normal guy. I don't have uh, I don't have episodes and create uh, traumatic scenes in public, and uh, I'm I do my work. I play music. There are a couple. I mean, I might be a little eccentric, but I've been able to manage my 501c3 uh, and a LLC, and I've always been an entrepreneur, and I've been able to keep my appointments, and uh, I'm reliable. I show up to gigs, and I take care of myself, grooming as far as wearing clean clothes and taking showers. But there are times when I get into a deep depression when I've had a serious failure in either my financial or artistic life, where I will for several months I won't be able to get out of bed, and uh, the depression, I'll just cry for, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours at a time, and then sleep and then cry, and then I can't really take care of myself. So uh, that is uh, that's that's been why I've had so many failures, is uh, the the onset of depression, like when I am involved with a woman and we split up, the abandonment issues really come into play, and I withdraw. I don't become I take myself out of society and uh, become really
What brings you back again?
uh, the the need to be productive and create stuff, uh,
Hmm.
and doing that, getting uh, having what some things that really help are when I get support from friends, uh, or uh, have a a love interest or something like that, and then have projects that are going on that I can't uh, that I need to keep sustaining, that need my energy and input to keep them going. Like say my old band, Deadweight. We were a pretty popular band, and we created an LLC, and uh, had a lot of success as in our business. Did a lot of touring and opened up for uh, some pretty notable artists, uh, and played played festivals like the Fuji Rock Festival in Japan, and some of the High Sierras festivals and things like that. Uh, anyway, I'm going off into a tangent.
Yeah.
It's
So
lucid
the tangent makes
dissociations.
sense, but
Lucid
I want to ask
dissociations.
you in terms of um, taking medication, right?
Yeah,
Some people, I think, especially for bipolar disorder, a person may be very fearful, because is that medicine going to impact their creativity? And I know you're an exceptionally creative person, and I want to get into that too. But
yeah.
what are your thoughts about taking prescribed medication under the supervision of a doctor and how that impacted your creativity, and did you have worries about, I'm not going to be there's something going to be taken away from me, my creative
Yeah.
self. If my mental health illness gets better, my creativity may suffer. Did you think that?
There were, yes, I thought that it would affect my abilities as a musician and an artist to create and be more imaginative. But when I first started taking meds, I was convinced that they were uh, meds that were going to sterilize me, that I wasn't going to be able to have kids because of the meds. And these were stories that I'd heard from about uh, the archaic mental health system where they would sterilize people and give them lobotomies and just the history of mental health treatment. Uh, and so that was where a lot of my fears of taking the meds were were based in. Uh, as far as uh, as far as side effects that affect your creativity or your energy, uh, yeah, there are some of the antipsychotics have have thrown me into s- depressive episodes uh, because you really you find yourself unable to get up and function in any kind of normal way. Um, Sometimes when you're on the antipsychotics, uh, but I've been taking my meds for so long. It's been what 30 years since I've been taking these meds, and I don't notice the side effects. I wouldn't know the difference of before I took the meds and my taking the meds now. I guess my body's adjusted to the uh, uh, the influence of the meds, the chemical uh, balances. Uh, so I What was the question again?
Yeah, it had to do with, yeah, it had to do with creativity.
Creativity, yeah.
Maybe I'll ask it also in a different way. In terms of hypomania, and I also, full disclosure, I want to say that I have bipolar 2 disorder with
Oh yeah,
hypomania and the
yeah,
depression. Uh, and although everybody's unique in their own way, I'm a creative person as well.
yeah,
Um, and with the hypomania, one can have increased energy, more ideas, more productive, more creative, more
yeah,
social, more everything in a way. But it doesn't get out of hand, right?
yeah,
In mania, I have not experienced mania, uh, but in mania, one can become what, can't sleep, or right, can't sleep, talking
yeah,
a mile a minute, not making any sense, bankrupting oneself, extremely impulsive, too many
yeah,
thoughts, agitated, angry, mood switching back and forth. And the creative impulse may still be there, but it can't be manifested because of what's going on with the mania. um, did you agree with that, or do you think
yeah.
in a manic state a person can be equally as creative?
I believe you get into it as you become kind of a creative superhero, but then things can get out of hand and you become so creative that you're not making sense logically, and a lot of it has to do a lot with um, there's a term for it, sir, the derailment syndrome. It's
Hmm.
losing dissociations, where just the tiny connections that really don't have any relation to them to each other can become something that you believe are inter uh, connected and intertwined. Uh, uh, that that they just the differences between uh, Well, it'd be hard to explain right now. I haven't thought of how to express it, but I do talk about some of the lucid associations experiences that I had uh, uh, in my book. There was things like the symbolism becomes very prominent in your thinking. So metaphors and symbolism uh, and there were things I'll go into an episode and I'll believe that I'm an undercover police officer and that uh, there would be cues as to how I was supposed to act or react to situations that were going on around me and uh, uh, so like if I heard the song Take Five, uh, it would be like take a 5 minute break, or there's uh,
Yeah, I'm saying sure because I'm remembering what with again, you're talking about schizoaffective disorder, but I
yeah,
remember with the schizophrenia part of it, um, individuals saying, that the radio is talking to them,
yeah,
the TV is talking, it's giving you messages, right?
become yeah, and my mother would get really religious. Uh, there were experiences that I had as growing up is that my mother would be uh, she had a great memory and she could memorize these psalms and proverbs. So she'd be the like expressing uh, the psalms of fire and brimstone in really dramatic way while explaining it to me, like a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old kid. That,
Hmm.
so uh, she she definitely would have those visions that and is still uh, very very um, religious and expresses uh, that she wants my brother and I to be God fearing and that
And in that state of mind, it all makes sense to the person that's having
yeah,
it,
yeah,
right?
it does.
I wish that I could remember the name of this person, and it'll come back to me later.
Yeah,
But there is a woman who's a lawyer, right? And there's a little bit of a story. She got to know a psychiatrist who's in California. I think that
yeah,
maybe the psychiatrist who's a man, maybe his wife or his sister knew of this woman, right? And somehow that woman and he got to know each other, right? And that
yeah,
woman who is like an amazingly intelligent, person who's a lawyer and is many other things too besides a lawyer. She has schizophrenia,
yeah,
and the psychiatrist is also a composer, and he
yeah.
created an opera, in fact, two operas that are about that lawyer and her
That's great.
psychotic breaks, right?
Yeah,
And I've seen some clips of that opera, which when I remember all the names of the people
yeah,
involved, I'll let you know. But there's a scene where she's in, I don't know, maybe she's in the library with her co-law students, and all of a
yeah,
sudden she's having a psychotic break, and her associations are all over the place
yeah,
and are paranoid. And I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons. One is that um, psychiatric illness, right? So I want to separate this out a little bit, that there's psychological life experiences,
yeah,
traumatic life experiences that can affect us as we're growing up and into adulthood, right?
yeah,
And some of those may not be necessarily of a psychiatric illness nature,
yeah,
right? A trauma that you have.
yeah,
But it has implications later in your life, where you've been neglected and abandoned in your life. And in a sense, naturally, you're going to be hyper vigilant or have emotional responses to be afraid that that's going to happen again. But then there can be a psychiatric illness that can strike anyone, right? It's not restricted to one ethnic group, one religious group, one socioeconomic group, although there may be specific risk factors that might increase, the risk of having that disability.
Yeah.
That's one thing I want to mention. And the other is how art, the psychiatrist, right, who became friends with her and then created an opera around her for the point of view of educating the public,
Yeah.
right, about mental illness and not to be afraid of it, right?
Yeah.
Not to be
The
afraid
stigma.
in terms of shunning it or running away from it or not reaching out for help if a person needs help and not giving help if somebody needs
Right.
help. I want to circle back though to you as a creative person. Who who introduced you, if it was a person, to music when you were growing up?
Well, the first influence I had was my father. He was a singer-songwriter, guitar player, a beautiful voice. So he started. Uh, we had our first experience playing in the streets when I was 5 and my brother was 4, uh, uh, singing Christmas carols in uh, a shopping mall in Eugene, Oregon, and but and then when I started playing violin, I was in 4th grade, and there was a teacher I had, uh, Mrs. Mrs. Grueling. She was an old Jewish violin teacher, and so she got me interested in playing the violin. I uh, I I really took to it, and
How did you start taking violin lessons?
it was something that happened in the school. Uh, there was a Suzuki violin program in the elementary schools in Ashland, Oregon, where I grew up, and uh, so uh, they gave me a violin and sent me to class 2 times a week, and I got to get out of math class to play violin. So that was good. But and then after that, I started taking private lessons from a guy named Ken Kygel, who uh, at one point he told my parents that well, my dad and my stepmom, that I should get a better teacher. So uh, uh, and then we ended up moving up to Corvallis, and I started studying with a guy named Marlon Carlson, who introduced me to Yasha Heifetz's protege, uh, Sherry Kloss, and I took lessons from her uh, my my senior year of high school and the summer after my freshman year, and then I ended up going to the San Francisco Conservatory and got a lot of great mentorship from uh, some well-known chamber music musicians, and then I so it really was there. I've had a lot of influences uh, on my musical creativity. Uh, my mom was a painter, so she uh, she kind of taught my brother and I how to paint, uh, that's where uh, my visual art started to. Uh, as I was growing up, I uh, would do a lot of drawing, and I never had the money to get uh, painting supplies or anything like that as I was growing up. But I'd make little sketches and stuff with crayons, and uh, that was. my experience with that. So my mom and dad were really the ones that brought that gave us the foundation for the creative life that uh, that brought a lot of music and art into uh, something that I really thank them for is giving having something that we became good at, my brother and I, uh, and that has helped create a successful life for me, uh, and something that I can fall back, or not fall back on, but hold on to when when I'm going into a bad period of time, like an episode or financial loss. Uh,
So I'm just thinking how fortunate you were. It's interesting what life gives us in a way. That in
yeah,
the midst of all what the trauma you were experiencing, there was music, right?
yeah,
And people
yeah,
that recognized your talents.
yeah. I got a lot of the teachers gave me a lot of support as I was growing up. They knew my family life was so just strange, and that they wanted me to have something that I could uh, develop and use when I became an adult, and so they
Ben,
gave me
did you also become a songwriter?
yeah. Uh, I've I wrote I've written a couple hundred songs. I play guitar and sing, and then my band Deadweight was electric violin, electric cello, drums, and I was the singer and violinist in that band. We were a uh, hard rock power trio uh, that had a lot of success. We won a couple band competitions and did a lot of touring. Uh, uh, Made 3 records. I've also I have like 1,000. I mean 100 over 100 recordings on all streaming platforms and uh, major web stores. Uh, so recordings of classical jazz, bluegrass, and rock, and I'm working on some more things, a couple albums, and I've got a band now called Swindlefish that we play my original music and we've got 2 albums out. Then my string quartet has three albums out. Uh, the string quartet doesn't play anymore. Seriously, we play like wedding gigs and uh, casual events, and then I've got a bluegrass project that I do with uh, my brother and my dad, and I've made a an album uh, that's on the streaming platforms. And
I want to go back, Ben. Earlier on when we were talking, you talked about having a psychotic episode, right? Where
yeah,
you ended up jumping in front of a train. And
yeah,
how old were you when that happened?
37.
37. And where were you in terms of your musical career at that point?
Uh, I Deadweight had stopped playing together, uh, and I'd started a new band, Swindlefish. I was playing violin, classical violin, a lot in BART stations and playing gigs uh, for like weddings and informal concerts. Uh, so uh, when when the accident happened, I wasn't able to play music for uh, a couple of years. I had some serious traumatic brain injury and uh, pins and screws in my shoulder and my scapula and my right arm. So I couldn't bow and I couldn't pick guitar. I had to do a couple years of really painful physical therapy to get the range of motion back so I could play. And uh, while that was happening, I went back to school and got a teaching credential to teach kindergarten and third grade. I got kindergarten, third grade, and fifth grade because I didn't think I was going to be able to play music professionally again. And I got more involved in my visual art, and uh, as that was happening, I started teaching like beginning violin players and was doing the physical therapy. So I got my chops back and was able to play music again. Uh, after about 3 years, I was back to being a professional violinist and guitar player and singer. And I went to when the pandemic started, I decided to document my life's work. Uh, to and I started. That's when I started making the YouTube channels and the videos, and I made all my recordings available on streaming platforms and web stores. And I wrote an autobiography and then a manual for artistpreneurs that are going to uh, that want to go pro. It's all the tips and things that I wish I'd had when I was uh, trying to.
And where's that available, Ben?
They're available on Amazon. The artistpreneurs economic the business manual will be published probably next month. It'll be available on Amazon. Loosened Associations Jazz, the autobiography uh, is that's on Amazon. Just uh, you just look under Loosened Associations Jazz, and the book will come up on Amazon Kindle search bar.
In the aftermath of that suicide attempt, um, how long were you hospitalized? I'm thinking medically hospitalized initially. And it
Yeah,
sounds like you were lucky to be alive
yeah.
in front of a train.
I was in a uh, ICU for a month in an induced coma. And then when I was out of ICU, I got switched to a rehab uh, hospital and was there for another month and a half. And then I was living with a woman at the time, uh, and she kind of took care of me for uh, what was sent back home after 2.5 months, and she took care of me for uh, about 4 years as I was recovering. Um,
What
and then,
were
yeah,
there? This may be hard to remember, but were there helpful things that any of the providers said to you during your recovery? That,
no, there
I
were
don't know,
just a lot of
inspired
failed
hope
surgeries.
or anything that you remember?
There were a lot of failed surgeries. So uh, there are things that they said that didn't work and things that they said that did. I don't remember them specifically right now. Um, uh,
And there was another accident. Uh,
Yeah, in 2020, one, I was crossing the street. I got hit by a car, and I got traumatic brain injury from that. On the other side, they were gonna, my brain was bleeding on the left side. Right now, the all the prosthetic bone and stuff is on the right side, and they were gonna take out the skull on the left side because my brain was bleeding, and so they
was your
decided not to do
brain
that.
bleeding related to the car accident?
Yeah, the car hit me and I got hit. Smacked my head on the street, uh, and I ended up breaking my wrist. Uh, stopping the fall. Uh, so uh, in that accident, I was in ICU for 3 days, uh, and then thank God that I recovered enough. The brain stopped bleeding, and they uh, they decided not to give me another cranioplasty.
Wow. You have been through so much. Yeah, please, could you share a little, Ben, on when you use the phrase traumatic brain injury? What were the symptoms that you had, and what are the interventions that can help someone?
Uh, well, I had double vision, and the woman that I was living with, she would take me to vision care every week until that got cleared up uh, after a year. Uh, I had some memory issues. I was teaching. I went to back to school and got my teaching credential and was volunteering and student teaching in elementary schools, and it's worse. The worst thing you can do to a kindergartner is forget their name. So, I was having trouble remembering all the kids' names. But that eventually, and I couldn't remember the lyrics to my songs. I couldn't remember uh, music. I had all the boxinatas and partitas and the cello suites memorized, and I had to relearn how to do all that. The uh, memory, headaches, um, a lot of, and just a lot of anxiety about everything that was going on with my physical health, uh, between having failed surgeries and having, being told that I needed to have another surgery. And uh,
And
so
that
that,
was about 5 years ago now?
um, that was 2007 through
Oh,
2014. So about
mhm.
7 years of 7 years of rehab and skull reconstruction and
That was with, and I apologize for needing to clarify. That was with the original suicide attempt?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then with the car accident, that was how many years ago now?
That was 4 years ago. Um,
And how are you
um,
now in terms of your memory,
I'm
and other aspects or headaches or whatever?
uh, I'm doing fine. I survived, and uh, while I still sometimes have uh, issues with keeping a train of thought and issues with getting frustrated with things, some anger uh, outbursts that that are caused by traumatic brain injury. Um, but I've been able to accomplish a lot. Registering a couple businesses and keeping those running and having a lot of success uh, with the LLC and um, the 501(c)(3). So I there's a lot that you can accomplish when you have disabilities like that. Uh, you just have to commit and follow through. That's the my mantra right now: commit and follow through.
What's your, I don't know, lived experience advice for someone who would say, I give up, I can't follow through?
Pull it together.
And how do we do that? Everybody
You
does it perhaps differently.
you get out of bed and you put one foot in front of another and you walk. You do what's required of you to keep uh, to keep your life going, and have in order to have any success. You just have to be really disciplined about it. There's the there are people that have uh, that have a lot of success are they're really disciplined and follow through and set goals and work to achieve them, and it builds up their confidence and their self esteem, uh, the to make the accomplishments. That's really what it is I like to set goals and follow through until I accomplish that goals, and then I set the bar a little higher and work towards my standard, raising my standards for my work and for my living. And what really is my catastrophization uh, of situations has put it so I don't want to go homeless again. So I do things that to keep myself from having financial issues. I really don't spend money on things that I don't need, and I really don't have the money to. Uh, so uh, I just keep my eyes on the prize and keep moving towards that end, and I don't let my own insecurities get in the way of my ambition to accomplish things that I feel like I want to do for myself and that would make the world a better place. Having a real social consciousness and uh, uh, needing to help others. That's having that kind of ambition to accomplish something that could make life better for other people is it's really brings a lot of inspiration into what I do.
Beautifully said, right? And beautifully lived, right? The spirit of giving back, right? And not
Yeah,
wanting others to suffer.
yeah. Uh, I don't want anybody to experience the things that I've experienced, so I uh, try to be educate people about mental illness and traumatic brain injury and uh, physical pain and mental health challenges uh, to keep from other people from them dealing with the stigma that's around the mental health challenges and uh, the you know what can be accomplished by people who have experienced severe trauma to the brain and childhood trauma. Just being able to pull things together and uh, and live a life that you're self sufficient, not relying on other people uh, for well, I don't want to live in a lifestyle that I don't want to go homeless again. It's
That's a motivator,
yeah,
right? A motivator not to be homeless again,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
Or even I was just thinking when we're talking about the catastrophic thinking of the worst possible outcome,
yeah,
that sounds like you've been able to take that catastrophe thinking into turning that fear into, well, what can I do to prevent that from happening? So let me
yeah,
take one little step at a time. And the more steps I take, the further ahead of that I am. And it's not going to
right.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Um,
Years ago, I was at an arts and healing workshop in Manhattan.
yeah,
And I it was an interesting writing prompt that they did. It was kind of like Carl Jung's active imagination, They
Wow, I
had
love
us
it.
take 3 pieces of paper and with our non-dominant hand scribble on the paper without any intention to draw anything.
Yeah,
And the 3 pieces of paper were to represent 3 parts of yourself, whatever that might be.
yeah.
And then to look at the scribble and see if you saw an image in it. And then to pull out the image and to draw it, pull it out, and title it. And my first image, my first drawing of the scribble looked like, I thought there was a bird in it, and I called it Bird That Wants to Fly. The
Ah,
second one seemed like a horse. I made it into a horse, and I called it Beautiful Animal That You Are. And then I changed it to Beautiful Animal That I Am. And the
wow.
third was a loop-de-loop, and I made it into a roller coaster with a please enter sign. And the title was Roller Coasting is Fun, True, False, or Both. And then we were asked to stand in the center of a circle and embody the image and speak for the image. So
Wow.
I became the traumatized, depressed bird. I became the powerful horse, and I
Yeah,
became the witness of life. Like, do I want to be alive or not alive,
yeah,
right? And the ups and
yeah.
downs of life. And then we were asked to write. And out of that experience, just literally flew out from me this story called Bird That Wants to Fly, about a traumatized bird that can fly, but because of terrible life experiences has chosen to walk through life.
Wow.
And it meets a magical horse and who listens to it and encourages it to spread its wings. And at the end of the story, the horse is inviting the bird to go on the roller coaster because he knows the owner and it would just be the two of them.
So you had a
Uh,
team and you kept working with it.
yeah, and in earlier in the it's a very short story, but in the beginning, the bird is so depressed, its head is down, and
Yeah.
it's not really looking where it's going, and it's about to walk into a puddle. And when it looks in the water, it sees its inner reflection, not its outer reflection.
It
So
sounds
in
like
the
a good book.
water,
Did you turn it into like a children's book or something like that?
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And in the water are the words, beautiful animal that I am. And
Yeah.
the bird looks up and it sees this beautiful horse. And although I did not consciously do this, the bird and the horse together is Pegasus, which is the symbol of
Oh
poetry
wow. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
transcendence. It became a self-published, illustrated
That's
coloring,
awesome.
no, children's book, not a coloring book, a children's book. But more amazingly than that, it inspired an opera. Uh, it,
Oh, it
uh,
did.
yeah, an opera was composed by a gentleman named Michael Raphael. It was
Yeah.
performed by Trilogy, an opera company, and the amazingly, a friend of the opera company is the actor Danny Glover, and he
Oh yeah.
narrated the story. And apropos of what you just said earlier about like get you in a way try to get yourself together to get up and take a step and take another
Yeah.
step. The last song of the opera is about every step I take takes me
Oh yeah.
closer to where I'm going, right? And the
Yeah.
last scene of the opera is the bird finally, raising its wings and flying.
Yeah. That's awesome. The other metaphors, and it sounds like something that could lead to some lucid associations. The
Yeah, well, I guess that's interesting because
yeah.
maybe creativity is what our the borders of our mind are set free and
Yeah.
things start associating, but then we make some sort of a coherent sense of it. Maybe it's a new sense, but it's still
Yeah.
coherent and has value instead of being what the opposite of creativity,
Yeah.
destructive or falling apart. It's coming together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you if someone perhaps is listening now who has struggled with having suicidal thoughts, right? Um, or even right now is having a suicidal thought, what would you say to them?
Think back to find something that inspires you and can help lift you out of uh, the the suicidal ideations. Make it something that can give you some ambition to be creative and to accomplish something that would make you feel better about yourself.
I found in my own experience, I had attempted suicide when I was in medical school, took a
Wow.
overdose of a prescribed medication and was on the medical floor, not the ICU, but the
Wow.
medical floor for a couple of days. Um, but I found that that experience frightened me so much that
Yeah.
I never wanted that to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it encouraged my self care and to try to um, remove stress from my life, or if I was feeling stressed, to pay attention to that, right?
Yeah.
It encouraged me. I was never anyone that did any drugs, although I certainly had boyfriends who were doing drugs, but
Yeah.
it encouraged me absolutely not to use alcohol or any kind of illicit substance because I
Yeah.
felt that perhaps I was not going to withstand that, right? So
Yeah.
in that way, it also protected me, and also I found that doing creative things helped me. So writing
Yeah.
poetry, expressing it in a lyric, drawing a picture, reading poetry, um, something that would get me out of myself and allow a safe expression of what I was feeling.
Yeah.
Everybody is different, but that helped me, as well as at times I was in therapy, at times I was prescribed medication.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, Oh, and I was thinking that the way art really helps with mental. I have my nonprofit has an initiative called Music for Mental Health, and uh, we take concerts and arts classes uh, to mental health clinics and uh, retirement homes, and really is addressing the loneliness epidemic. A lot of people may think that that sounds uh, like it's not a very, and that's not even a real epidemic, but the American Mental Association and is
and the
um,
Surgeon General a number of years
Surgeon
ago,
General, yeah,
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 spoke of it as an epidemic.
yeah. Um, but giving somebody something that they can create from their own thoughts uh, can be a really powerful force for for helping for your mental and your physical health, and uh, uh, it really helps. The loneliness epidemic has a lot of on influence on poverty, uh, and people don't get a chance to network or meet other people and find opportunities to become a little to work on their wealth. Um, yeah.
You've done so much in your life, right? Do you have further dreams of what else you might want to, next step you would take?
Um, I want to scale my LLC and my nonprofit, make it something that's could be. I've global visions. I tend to get so ambitious that I can fall into a depression
Well, it gets
when
so
things
big
get
and
hard.
then it
Yeah,
seems impossible and then it goes into depression.
yeah. But let's see. I ran for San Francisco mayor last year. Uh, that I've always wanted to go into politics, and uh, I think that my ideas could help a lot of people, uh, especially coming from somewhere that was uh, growing up in abject poverty, and working towards education, and trying to help people make their lives better, uh, uh, financially and mentally, uh, mental health wise, bringing more attention to and mental health, and and trying to uh, demystify the stigma against people uh, who are having challenges with mental health, uh, and all the socioeconomic uh, aspects of that our brains, uh, trying to find the right words for it, but uh, and I have a lot of ideas, and I'm uh, I'm always kind of hypomanic about things. Uh, my I'm always thinking about things that are problems for myself and problems for other people uh, in my position, and trying to figure out solutions to those issues.
With the hypomania, um, can be a positive thing as long as it's channeled, right?
Yeah,
Channeled in a productive
and
way.
it's as long as you know when to stop yourself, and you
Yeah.
can control that.
Hmm.
When I find myself in an experience of creativity that's gone to where my mind is not, well, by going to an alternate universe, uh, my creativity takes me to an alternate universe. I can recognize that now, and I stop. Uh, I I I just stop and recalibrate.
Great, right? Because that's so important, right? That awareness, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
going 100 miles per hour here. Need
yeah,
to put the car in the garage, right?
yeah,
And go to
yeah,
sleep for a while, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
The
Ben, what is your a website where people can find you?
um the nonprofit website is culturescholar.org. My
Culturescholar.org. Uh-huh.
Yeah, culturescholar.org. My lessons website is benjaminbarnes.com, and that's music and lessons. And then uh, my art gallery is bencaso.org. Uh, and the art,
Thank you. And more
yeah.
that you want to say?
Well, yeah, the art gallery shows works by people who have challenges with mental health. Uh, so that's really where it is. I'm always looking for artists artists with schizophrenia, or artists with psychotic artists to post their work
And
in
is
there.
that visual art or could it be
Yes, it's
poetry?
visual art, it's
Visual art.
paintings and digital art,
Uh-huh.
um, paintings, digital art, photography. Um, yeah.
And I will include those links in the description,
Oh, that'd be
right,
great. Thank
of the
you.
podcast. So
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you so much, Ben. I
Yeah,
really
thank
enjoyed
you.
meeting you and
Yeah.
learning from you.
Yeah, it was great hearing your story too. Uh, it's nice to know that I'm not alone.
You're not alone. And I'm not alone either.
Yeah,
But it's one thing to think that, it's another
yeah,
thing to experience it. Right.
yeah. Well,
So
thank
I'm
you.
wishing you a great rest of the day, and I
Yeah,
hope that we can stay in touch.